The convoy left at dawn on the 11th day and came back before noon. 3 chimeras, 29 civilians, 2 children with flattened bullets in their fists, and a road that the map said ran clean to Hive Tertius. Adam stood on the wall and watched the dust of their departure, the way a man watches a held breath finally leave a room and then watch the dust turn around. The lead driver's report made no sense until Vaughn drove out to see it himself, and then it made a worse kind of sense. 9 kilometers out, where the arterial dipped between 2 dead cooling stacks, the road stopped, not cratered, not ambushed, walled. Someone had dragged 40 vehicle carcasses, 3 hab unit fronts, and 1 entire ore hauler across the arterial, and welded, stacked, and wedged them into a barrier 6 meters high. And then, this was the part Vaughn kept returning to, in the flat voice of a man reading his own autopsy. Someone had cleared firing lanes on the far side, neat ones. "Orcs don't build walls," Cade said, when the picked captures went around. "Orcs unbuild walls, it's their whole culture." "They do now," Adam said quietly, and didn't say the rest, which was, "He's not besieging us. Sieges are for taking things. You wall a place off when you want to keep what's inside the way you fence a pitch before a match." The system, which had been quiet for 2 days, chose that moment to agree with him. Regional analysis updated, hostile activity pattern, containment, assessment, the venue is being prepared. The venue, Adam repeated. Below the wall, 2 children, who should have been 40 kilometers gone, were being handed back down out of a chimera, and one of them waved at him, because to the children of Sanctus Kappa, he was a good thing, an uncomplicated thing, the man the Emperor had sent. He waved back. His hand felt like a rented object. The mural turned up 2 days later, on the flank of a dead Prometheum tank along 3rd Platoon's northern patrol loop, and it emptied the patrol's vocabulary on sight. It was 4 meters tall, and it was unmistakably art, orc art, but composed, deliberate, repainted in places where the first draft had displeased the artist. It showed a stick-figure man, rendered entirely in gray, seams of white picked out at the joints, lightning coming off him in crude jags. Around him, glyphs Adam's 15 years could half-read, mighty ghost, funny, good fight. And above him, a single glyph like a fanged sun, a mark he'd last seen painted on black, mega armor the size of a warehouse. And beneath it all, a horizontal row of tally strokes, 30 or so, 3 of them freshly crossed out. "It's a countdown," Brandt said. His voice had gone very young again. "There, that's a date. They gave us a date. They gave him a date." Cade wasn't looking at the mural. She was looking at Adam, and there was nothing accusing in it, which somehow made it heavier. The rest of us are the pitch. Corsac rode out to see it personally, walked its length twice, and had it picked recorded from 9 angles before ordering it left intact. Destroying an enemy's message tells him you feared it, and on the ride back he said only one thing, to the window of the chimera in the tone of a man updating a file. "It has a sense of occasion that's rare in a Xenos and expensive in an enemy." That night, out past the smoke line, the single drum kept its slow claiming time, and somewhere much further out, a second drum joined it, same rhythm, offset by half a beat, so that the 2 of them walked through the dark like footsteps. The Mechanicus arrived on the 14th day, and it arrived the way weather systems do, barometrically, felt before seen. Sarn felt it first. Adam found her at the relay at dawn, motionless, her Binharik cant running fast and low like a prayer said under pursuit. "A carrier signal," she said. "Vox Mechanicus, high liturgical register, broadcasting clearance rights on all Mechanicus channels simultaneously. That is not how one announces a visit, Sergeant. That is how one announces a possession. Something of ours is coming up that road, believing that everything it is about to see already belongs to it." It came up the road an hour later, a land crawler the size of a chapel, red as a wound, hung with purity seals and antennae, grinding on treads that had crushed better roads than this one flat. Around it walked Skitari, 2 full maniples of augmented soldier clergy in rust-red robes over chrome, moving with a synchrony that made the Corvins' parade drill look like a crowd leaving a theater. And from the crawler's ventral hatch, when it finally sighed to a halt inside the gate, descended the second runner. Magos Dominus Volt did not so much walk as arrive continuously. 4 legs, segmented, chromed, cathedral quiet, carried a torso that had given up on the human silhouette several upgrades ago, a mantle of dark red, a cluster of manipulator limbs folded like arresting insects, and where a face should have been, a smooth oval of ancient bronze set with 7 green optical points arranged in no pattern Adam's eye could forgive. The 7 green points found Adam across the whole width of the yard, through 200 people, in under a second. Corsac had done the same thing on the first day. Somehow this was worse. Corsac had looked at him like arithmetic. Volt looked at him like provenance. Blessed is the anomaly, the Magos said, a voice assembled from at least 4 sources, none warm, for it expands the archive. They convened in Vaughn's command post within the hour. The Major, the Commissar, the Magos, and summoned by name, which told Adam everything about how much Volt already knew, Sergeant Voss and Adept Sarn. Volt opened by displaying his authority the way other men draw weapons, a hololithic writ, dense with sigils, by direction of the Lathe Covenant, pursuant to anomalous data checksums received, the phenomenon designated Sanctus Kappa event and all associated materials, instruments, and persons are requisitioned for examination and transport. Persons, Corsac said, mildly. Material bearing the anomaly is material, the Magos replied. Then allow me to introduce a distinction the Omnissiah will recognize. Corsac produced his own document, 1 page, handwritten, the ink barely 3 days old, and read it aloud, all 5 lines, unhurried. Field sanction, under the authority of the Commissariat, on an active front. Your writ requisitions an anomaly, Magos. There is no anomaly at this post. There is a provisionally recognized miracle, under my custody, pending review. If the lathes wish to overrule a Commissariat field judgment, they may petition through departmental channels. Astropathic transit to the relevant office, in current warp conditions, is estimated at 11 months. The auger halo stopped rotating. Then I shall verify in situ, Volt said at last, and the halo resumed its slow tone. The lathes are patient. I am the lathes' patience. The 7 green points swung to Sarn, and his voice added a layer of Binhuric under the Gothic, a private channel made rudely public. Adept Sarn, your rights of verification have been ongoing for 6 days. I have come to assist them. You will find my assistance thorough. Sarn's servo arm was perfectly still, which Adam had learned to read as a scream. Welcome to Firebase Sanctus, Magos, Vaughn said heavily. Try not to get anyone killed. The system had opinions about their guest. Adam felt the first one that same evening, as Volt's auger halo drifted the yard on its endless instrument-tasting circuit and passed within 30 meters of him, and something happened that had never happened before. The interface flickered, not failed, reacted, a stutter at the edge of every readout like a screen noticing a magnet, and then a line of text with an entirely new flavor, contempt, forend, query detected, per socol, mechanicus liturgical handshake, variant M32, assessment, obsolete, response, known. The halo stopped, rotated back a degree, held. 30 meters away, a machine priest 15 millennia younger than the thing living in Adam's eyes had just knocked on a door and heard, very distinctly, the sound of a lock declining to exist for him. The system had refused the handshake, but a refusal is also an answer. Volt's instruments could not read the door, but they had now proven to Mechanicus evidentiary standards that there was a door. Incanty, Volt, classification, scavenger. His archive is a midden his questions will improve. You could have just not answered. Adam breathed, not. Answering is an answerer. All responses leak. Efficiency improves outcomes. Sarn came to the wall at midnight, and for the first time since he'd known her, she came without instruments. He is my superior, she said, not administratively, doctrinally. By morning he will hold ordered access to every log I have taken since the column arrived. I have spent tonight performing certain acts of data hygiene that my order would call heresy, and I call curation. The emergent signatures are fragmented now, corrupted by a regrettable sense of fault. The fault is plausible. I built it to be plausible. Understand what I have just spent, Sergeant. 41 years of accurate data, and tonight I falsified an archive. for a machine that gods. He detected the refusal tonight. I saw his array log it. A null response, where physics requires some response. That is not nothing, Sergeant. That is a footprint. He cannot see you yet. But he now knows exactly where to point his instruments, and he will spend every hour of this deployment building a better question. The human corner of her mouth moved a millimeter in what he had learned was her species of grief. And Magos Dominus Volt has been building better questions for 300 years. Below them, in the yard, the auger halo drifted past 3rd Platoon's weapon racks and paused and tasted and moved on. The next morning, the counter-push order came through the relay with priority seals. The Corvan 5th, with attached provisional forces, would march in 3 days to break the Orc wall and reopen the Tertius corridor. Volt announced not requested, that he and one maniple would accompany the column to observe the anomaly under field conditions. Corsac signed off on it with a face like a closed ledger. And that night, alone on the wall, Adam watched the 2 drums out in the dark become 3, and the interface printed 1 line, small, in the corner of everything, and left it there like a stone in a shoe. Second runner identified, race conversion, active. The column marched at dawn on the 17th day, and Scar-Goots led it. That was the wrongness. Adam couldn't vox to anyone. 9 kilometers of dead arterial perfect ambush country, a horde that outnumbered them 50 to 1, and nothing. The Orcs watched from the high gantries, thousands of them, drumming not attacking, an audience filing into its seats. Vorn read it as cowardice broken by the weird boy's deletion. Corsac read it and said nothing, which meant he read it correctly. The system read it out loud. Hostile posture, permissive. Assessment. The route is sanctioned. You are being allowed to arrive. The wall of welded wrecks came down under Patience's cannon, and 2 hours of melter work. They made 6 kilometers. The 7th was where the district fell on them. It came without drums, without a war cry, without any of the courtesies Orcs owed the universe. Just a chain of demolition charges, Imperial charges looted from some dead depot, placed with a patience no greenskin should own, walking up the support pylons of the elevated habro that overhung the arterial's narrowest cut. Adam had half a second of seeing the whole structure shrug before 11,000 tons of habitation stack sat down on the road. The front third of the column made it through. The rear third stopped in time. The middle 2 chimeras, a supply hauler, Patience, and the better part of 2 platoons went under. Sound came back slowly in layers, settling ferrocrete, fire finding fuel, and then threading up through 4 meters of collapsed hab like a nerve through meat, voices under it, alive under it. Vox crackle. This is Patience. We are intact. Hulls holding. We're entombed. I've got 3rd platoon survivors knocking on my armor, maybe a dozen. There's a void down here, but it's filling with smoke. Pell's voice, 19 years old, steady the way the young are steady right up until they aren't. Somebody dig fast. Vorn's engineers gave it a number, 6 hours to cut a shaft. Reeve gave the smoke a number, 40 minutes, and the interface with the timing Adam had stopped calling coincidence and started calling curation, gave him a door. No clip unlocked. Duration 40 seconds per execution. Cooldown 300 seconds warning. Rendered geometry only. Warning collision is a courtesy. Adam stood in front of 4 meters of solid catastrophe with 40 lives ticking down behind it, and did not waste time asking what that meant. Execute. The world came apart politely. That was the only honest description he ever managed. Nothing moved, nothing changed. His eyes reported the same rubble, the same smoke, the same shocked column, but the meaning drained out of all of it at once. Solidity became a suggestion. The ferrocrete in front of him was still there, but there had become negotiable, and when he stepped forward, the wall accepted him the way water accepts a hand. Inside was worse. Inside the collapsed mass there was no dark, because dark is rendered too. There was structure, every slab, every rebar, every crushed bunk and burst pipe traced in thin pale seams of light, wireframe on a void, the entire universe reduced to its scaffolding, and Adam, moving through it, understood with a lurch that emptied his stomach that he had seen these seams before, on the joints of his dead. The echoes weren't drawn in some special ghost style. They were drawn in the world's own understyle. The seams were always there, under everything, under everyone. The render was the courtesy. And out past the wireframe, in a direction that wasn't one, something enormous completed a very slow turn. It did not have a shape, it had attention. He felt it arrive the way you feel a searchlight through closed eyelids, a pressure of being read, and every instinct he owned, old and new, human and installed, said the same word at the same volume, out, remaining 22 seconds. He found the void by its voices, stepped out of a wall of nothing into a pocket of smoke and emergency loom light, into a dozen coughing troopers and the great buried flank of patients, and the screaming that greeted his arrival was, under the circumstances, fair. He'd walked out of solid ferrocrete trailing seam light like cobwebs. Shoring jacks, he rasped, already spending requisition in fistfuls, the vendor materializing hardware into his hands with its soundless static fold. Jacks, cutters, rebreathers, a melta-charge he placed by wireframe memory against the one slab, whose seams read load free. Masks on, faces away. We're leaving through the wall, and nobody, he caught Pell's saucer eyes through the tank's vision slit, nobody puts what they're about to see in a report. That's an order and a prayer. The charge spoke. The slab left. Daylight arrived, and 40 minutes worth of dying men walked out of a tomb through a door that hadn't existed, into the arms of a column that had watched their sergeant enter the rubble through its face. Adam came out last, and the bill came with him, nose streaming, both eyes aching in their sockets, and the world, this was the part he told no one, refusing, for 6 full minutes, to fully render, seams everywhere, on the rubble, on the chimeras, on the men embracing the rescued, thin pale lines at every joint of everything, patiently informing him that solid was a setting, execution complete, exposure logged, 38 seconds, advisory, do not remain phased in proximity to active warp, phenomena. What happens if I do? The system did not answer, which was by now its most informative register. Magos, Dominus Vault, had recorded everything, of course he had. 3 servo skulls and the full halo from 4 angles at maximum fidelity. He arrived while the dust still hung and the 7 green points looked at the doorway and the rubble face Adam had walked into and then performed the Mechanicus equivalent of falling to his knees, which was to go completely still and flood 3 Vox channels with a hymn. Intact, the Magos said when he finally produced Gothic again, a phase transit of the Dark Age, operating, housed. You are not a soldier, Sergeant. You are not a miracle. You are the single most significant archaeotech recovery in 900 years, and you are being spent on a corridor. He is being spent, said Corsac, arriving with the unhurried inevitability of a due date, on the Emperor's war, under the Emperor's sanction, by the Emperor's commissar, requisition the rubble, Magos. It's seen as much of the anomaly as you have. The halo rotated. Somewhere inside the bronze oval, 300 years of better questions were compiling.
Commissar. A theological observation. Volt's voice chorus dropped into a register. Adam hadn't heard from it. Patient, almost gentle. You guard him as a miracle. I desire him as a relic. We are both wrong, and we both know it, and we are both choosing our error because our error is useful. But consider, a miracle can be worshipped in place. A relic can be studied in place. What neither of us can survive is the third reading, and the third reading is coming, Commissar. I have seen the query traffic. Something is inbound that does not intend to worship or to study. When it arrives, you will wish the lathes had him. The lathes at least keep what they take.
He left them with that treads and legs in him, and Corsac watched him go with an expression Adam had never seen on the Commissar before, and couldn't name for an hour afterward until he realized what it was. It was a man checking his own arithmetic and finding it, for the first time, incomplete. They reached the Tertius corridor junction by nightfall, dug in around a dead transit basilica, and the war entered the strange held breath of a front waiting for its own weight to shift, which made it exactly the moment for Sarn to appear at his shoulder in the dark with a shielded data slate and say, "The shed is ready. Bring your dead." The experiment had been her price and his need, agreed in whispers back at Sanctus. 1 echo, 1 shielded structure, 1 hour full instrumentation, because the question had teeth now, and the teeth had a name. They used the Basilica's lead-lined reliquary vault. Adam deployed 1 echo, Trooper Hale, 5 days dead before Adam had ever learned his name. The first resource the system ever detected, and for an hour Sarn ran him through her instruments, while the gray man stood and walked and presented arms and did every mechanical thing Adam ordered with the frictionless obedience of a process. Then Sarn said, "Order him to aim at me." "What?" "No. Order it. The weapon is inert. I have verified. I require the latency." Adam ordered it, and the echo of Trooper Hale, who in life had died 4 meters from Adam without their eyes ever meeting, who was a recording, a render, an asset, raised his colorless lasgun toward the tech priestess and stopped for 211 milliseconds. At 40 degrees, a human wouldn't have seen it. Sarn's instruments drank it.
"There," she said softly. "Do you understand what that is, Sergeant?"
A recording replays. A process executes. 200 milliseconds at the exact angle, where his old training would have registered a friendly in his firing arc, is not execution. It is deliberation. Your dead are not recordings. They weigh. Something in there weighs the order against something else in there. And your system, she turned the slate toward him, the interface's own telemetry, and in the log at the moment of the pause, nothing. No deviation recorded, a perfectly falsified line. Your system watched it happen and wrote down that it didn't. The vault was very quiet. Why would it lie about them having minds? I can construct only one hypothesis that fits, Sarn said, because if you knew, you would ask them questions, and there is something in your dead that it does not want interviewed. Stand down, Adam told the echo, and Hale came apart into seamlight, obedient, silent, and he was almost sure. He would never be sure. A fifth of a second slower than commanded. Corruption, 3%, said the corner of his vision. He hadn't used the corrupted build. He'd only deployed. The counter apparently had opinions about proximity, too. The last night before the corridor assault, 2 things happened in the wrong order. The first, a herald came to the wire, a single grot, unarmed, walking upright into the guns of an entire column with the fearless self-importance of a creature under a war boss's protection, carrying a slab of scrap iron half its own size. It planted the slab in the mud, screamed 1 sentence of gargled low orcish at the sentries, and walked away untouched, because 200 lasguns could not decide whose job it was to shoot a mailman. Sarn translated the slab in the command post, in a voice with all the tone removed. Best translation: finish your little war first, then the real one. Scargoods waits. Saved our best git for last. It's giving us leave to fight, Vaughn said, disbelieving, so the match isn't spoiled. It's selling tickets, said Corsac. The second thing happened an hour later, and Adam only learned of it because Sarn's new curation habits included watching her superior's power draw. She found him in the dark by the basilica wall, and her cant was running so fast it had gone almost tonal. The Magos has unpacked cargo tonight, a stasis suspension rig, grav clamps, a Faraday reliquary. The manifest lists it for Xenos pattern acquisition. I have read the rig's actual field geometry, Sergeant. It is not tuned for Xenos mass. It is tuned for a human pattern volume, or for something rendered at human scale. He is not planning to take you. He is planning to take one of yours. And Sergeant, a stasis field is a pause. Whatever your dead carry that the system lies about, in his rig, it would hold still long enough to be read. Out in the dark, the drums had multiplied again. 5 now, 6, walking their offset rhythm through the ruins like a crowd finding its seats. And in the corner of Adam's vision, the interface added 1 line beneath the corruption counter and left both of them burning there together. Quiet, green, patient, race condition, deadline detected. Multiple processes are reaching for the same. Resource is advised to have a lock. The corridor assault stepped off at dawn on the 19th day, and for 6 hours the Imperium remembered how to win. Patience and her sister armor broke the second orc wall at the junction. Vorn's companies rolled the flank of a mob that fought hard and strangely honestly. No tricks, no jumps, no walls, just orcs at last, being orcs. And by midday the Turkish corridor was open for the first time in a month, and men who had spent weeks learning to whisper were shouting themselves hoarse on an open road. Adam fought the whole action as a rifleman, deliberately, countably. Reload pantomime, 3 seconds every 4th burst. Because Volt's servo skulls hung over 3rd Platoon all day like carrion with lenses, and because he had made himself a promise on the flare doctrine of a dead sergeant, spend nothing today. The worst moment is coming. It always is. He was right in the way he had learned to hate being right. The worst moment came that night, and it did not come from the orcs. It came at 2:03 antimeridian, when the lumen grid of the junction lager browned out for 4 seconds, surged and died across the entire eastern perimeter, floodlights, las capacitor banks, the auspex pickets, the vox links between them, all of it gone in one smooth professional shedding of load, and in the blind dark east of the wire, where an orc probe had been nosing the pickets for an hour, the drums stopped. Adam was on the wall before his boots were tied, and San was already in his ear, and her voice had no clicks in it at all, which was the most frightening sound she'd ever made. It's him. The draw is the crawler. He's pulled the entire eastern grid into his own capacitors. Sergeant, his uplink array is live. He is transmitting full-spectrum astropathic relay through our mast, and the packet is my archive, all of it, the originals. He reconstructed my fault. And the second signal braided into the carrier is a beacon, retrieval pattern. He has called something to come and take. Below in the dark, the eastern wire lit up with muzzle flashes, the probe, smelling the blackout pouring in, and men began dying by loomstick light because a machine priest needed their electricity to mail a letter. Adam heard Vaughn roaring the reserve east, heard Corsac's voice cut through the command channel, flat and carrying, Magos Volt, you will shed your draw and restore the grid. Acknowledge, heard the answer, arrive in that patient, full-voiced chorus, over an open channel, for the record, forever. The transmission window is 70 seconds, Commissar. The Imperium has spent men for less. Acknowledge that. Something in Adam went very quiet and very cold, and it was not the system this time. It was the part of him that had stood at a burned barrel and been told, the day your cost lands on my people, his cost, his anomaly, his archive in that packet, his dead in that stasis rig, his electricity killing those men on the wire. Corsac's voice again, and this time it was on 3rd Platoon's channel, private, 2 words, the green light of a man who had already done the arithmetic. Sergeant, quietly. Loudly's yours, Adam said, and went over the inner wall into the dark, alone, toward the chapel on treads. The crawler's hull was 1/2 meter of blessed plasteel, warded, sealed, and guarded by a maniple of Skitari who did not sleep, did not blink, and registered heat, motion, and auspex shadow out to 200 meters, none of which mattered to a man for whom collision was a courtesy. Execute. The world came apart politely, and Adam walked into the wall of the Mechanicus like a rumor. Wireframes swallowed him, the crawler's innards a cathedral of seams, power conduits burning bright as veins, and there ahead, the uplink array screaming its packet up through the mast in a column of light only the understructure could see, and out in the direction that wasn't one. The vast attention turned toward him faster this time. Familiar now, expecting him. The pressure of being read arrived in 2 seconds instead of 10, and with it, for the first time, something that was almost texture, the sensation of an enormous patience being pleasantly surprised. Remaining 31 seconds. Advisory repeated. Do not remain phased in proximity to active warp phenomena. Note, the astropathic relay is an active warp phenomenon. Now you tell me. He dropped out of phase inside the transmission sanctum, into rendered air, into candle smoke and incense and the bass hum of capacitors murdering guardsmen by proxy, and into the sight lines of 4 Skitari and 1 Magos Dominus, mid-right. What followed took 9 seconds and hurt nobody, which was the entire impossible point. Speed hack, a half-second burn, hamstrings screaming their invoice, and 2 Skitari galvanic rifles were suddenly elsewhere, spinning away into the dark. The vendor spending requisition like water, a photon flash charge materializing already lit, whiting out augmetic optics tuned for gloom, a canister of sacred lubricant of all things under the tracked feet of the 3rd Skitarius, whose superhuman reflexes were built for every surface except comedy. The 4th got Adam's rifle butt, with regret, across the joint of jaw and augment, non-lethal by the grace of levels he'd bought with other people's blood. And then it was just Adam, and the uplink and the Magos turning with terrible unhurried grace. You cannot stop mathematics, Sergeant, Volt said. The packet is half sent, the half that matters. I know, Adam said. I'm not here to stop it. I'm here to delete it. Target, object, uplink, cogitator arraign. Charge available 1. Delete. The heart of the crawler, 900 years of accumulated rights, a cogitator stack that had been old when Corvus Secundus was founded. The single most sacred object Magos Dominus Vault owned stopped existing. No blast, no slag, a clap of collapsing air, a rain of unsupported cabling, and a machine priest's hymn cut off mid-note as if the universe had lost the file. The eastern grid surged back to life. Out on the wire, floodlights slammed on over a probe suddenly lit like a stage, and 200 lasguns ended the argument in 40 seconds. In the sanctum, in the ringing silence, Vault stood absolutely still. When his chorus finally spoke, 3 of the 4 voices had dropped out, and the one that remained sounded, for the first time, like what had once been a man. 300 years. I have catalogued the galaxy's losses for 300 years. I have never been one. The green points rose to Adam. You did not damage it. Damage I could grieve. You unmade the information. Do you understand yet what you are carrying, little sergeant? You are carrying the thing my religion is the fossil of. Then you understand? Adam said quietly. Why you can't have it. The sanctum doors blew their bolts from outside, procedurally, with breaching charges signed for in triplicate, and Commissar Corsac walked in over the smoke with Vaughn and 20 guardsmen and a data slate already open, doing the possible loudly. The charge was read aloud in the sanctum, for the record, while Medici teams were still carrying men off the eastern wire. Magos Dominus Vault at second hour this night. During contact with the enemy, you diverted the defensive power grid of an Imperial position under attack for private purpose against the direct order of Commissariat authority, resulting, as of this reading, in 11 Imperial dead. Corsac did not raise his voice. He never raised his voice. That had always been the whole horror of him. The Commissariat calls it the shortest regulation in the book. You know its length. Magos, 1 sentence, 1 round. The Skitari in the room, recovered, rearmed, 12 of them now, did not move. Neither did the 20 guardsmen. The entire Imperium held its breath in a candlelit box, while 2 jurisdictions aimed at each other. You will not execute a Magos Dominus of the Lathes. Vault said, Mars would burn this hive for it and call the fire an audit. Correct, said Corsac, which is why I'm not going to execute you. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to file you. Detention pending review. In your own crawler under Corvin guard, all rights suspended, all transmissions sealed, and my report of this night's 11 dead routed to the Departamento, the Ecclesiarchy liaison at Tertius, and your own Lathe Covenant by 3 separate astropaths with your open channel acknowledgement attached. A pause, exact as a stamp. You told me something is inbound that does not intend to worship or study Magos. When it arrives, it will find you exactly as you have made yourself tonight, a saboteur, in custody, whose life's evidence no longer exists. Everyone at this post is a miracle pending review. Welcome to the file. And Magos Dominus Vault, 300 years of better questions, went, cathedral quiet, to his cell. The orcs hit the junction lager once more before dawn. Hard, at the seam between 2 exhausted companies. A real assault this time. Scargoots clearing his throat, and for 6 minutes it was part 1 of Adam's life again. A breach, a folding line, the arithmetic failing. He spent the echoes without hesitating, and noticed that he didn't hesitate, and filed the noticing away where he filed the worst things. Smoke first, then the 2 words, then 10 gray soldiers holding a breach in the blindfold, while the living rallied behind them. By now the Corvins fought alongside it without breaking stride, which was its own quiet horror, and the assault broke, and Adam stood in the settling dark and said, "Stand down." 9 echoes came apart into seam light, obedient. The 10th walked. Echo Dre stepped out of the smoke, out of the constraint zone, unordered in front of Adam and Brant and Muno and a dozen frozen Corvans, and crossed 20 meters of open ground with her unhurried foreman's stride to the basilica wall where some transplanted soul from Sanctus had chalked up the old tallyboard's twin. The count on it was wrong. It still read yesterday's number. The echo of Sergeant Dre picked up the chalk with 3 gray fingers, crossed out the old number, wrote the true one, tonight's dead already subtracted, correct to the man. A count no one had yet taken. Set the chalk down on its ledge, squared it parallel to the edge, the way she had squared everything in life, and came apart into seam light, last of all, unhurried, like someone finishing a shift. Nobody spoke. Brant was crying without sound. It was Muno, Muno, whom the whole compound had filed under shock, who finally said it in the calm voice of the only man present whose model of the universe required no updating. She's still keeping the count. Echoes do not process environmental data. Stop. Adam said it out loud, past caring, to the green text and the night and the whole vast machinery of everything. Stop lying to me. I watched her deliberate. I have the instrument data. I know about Hale's 200 milliseconds. What is in my dead? The interface went quiet for a long time, longer than latency, longer than choosing, QWERTY, refused. Not a lie, not a slogan, a refusal, the first it had ever given him, and Adam understood that he had finally asked a question the system considered more dangerous than his distrust. Corruption, 4%. The stings came at dawn, in order the way stings did. Sarn found him first, at the ruined uplink. The half-cent packet reached its first relay. I traced the handshake. Sergeant, it was never addressed to Mars. She turned the slate. The routing string terminated at a vessel designation that appeared in no system registry, no manifest, no almanac. Just a berth code, high anchor, present in system for 19 days. Since before Volt had arrived, the Magos believed he was reporting to the Laths. His queries were being intercepted, redirected, and answered by this. He was never the second runner, Sergeant. He was the rabbit. Something used him to make you show your legs, and you showed them tonight, through your own mast, half an archive of them. Volt found him second, spoke to him, through the grill of the cruelest cell, one surviving voice out of 4, almost human, almost kind. I will tell you what I learned, little sergeant. Since we are both dead men filing, I caught one of your gray soldiers in stasis last week. 4 seconds of clean read before the field failed. The pattern remembers its death, expected. The pattern remembers its training, expected. But the pattern also carries instruction sets. It was never issued in life, and has never been issued by you. Orders, Sergeant, preloaded, dormant, addressed. Your dead are not empty. Your dead are in boxes. The green points glittered in the dark of the cell. Ask your system who is writing to them. And when it refuses, ask yourself why you were given an army you do not fully command. And the system found him third, because the system always went last. He was alone on the basilica roof by then. Sunrise the color of an old bruise, the tertius corridor open below him, and 11 fresh graves along it, and the flattened round turning over and over in his fingers. Out in the ruins, the drums had gone to their new arrangement. Dozens now, walking, patient, and under them, once enormous and distant and delighted, something laughed. Runners, Adam said to the interface. How many are in this race now? Me, Corsac, Mars, when they hear the thing on that ship, the war boss. You? Anyone else I'm missing? The answer came small and green, and it stayed in the corner of his vision for a long time after, burning there beside a number that had climbed another point, while he wasn't looking, and would not say why. Corruption, 5%. Race conversion, O anguing. Runners, O anju unrecommend. Improve your position.
Yeah.
Adam said softly, to the drums, to the ship he couldn't see, to the dead who kept the count and the walls that were a courtesy, working on it, and in the raw light over a corridor he'd bought with other people's arithmetic. 15,000 years from home, Sergeant Adam Voss began very carefully to test the walls. End of part 3. 73 frames.